Welcome to Analects of Wisdom. Here on another episode of Sacred Texts Summarized, we'll delve into the profound wisdom of the world's most transformative spiritual and philosophical writings. Today, we venture into the enigmatic and playful world of the Zhuangzi, a cornerstone of Taoist thought attributed to Zhuang Zhou or Master Zhuang. Imagine a world where reality and dreams blur, where the absurd and the profound dance in harmony. This is the world of the Zhuangzi, a text teeming with paradoxes, whimsical anecdotes, and deeply transformative lessons about life, death, and the art of letting go. Today, we'll explore these timeless teachings and uncover their relevance to our modern lives. Here, in the pages of the Zhuangzi, you'll find talking fish debating the nature of happiness, philosophers transforming into butterflies, and reclusive sages content to let the world spin on its own axis. On one hand, it's a text brimming with light-hearted tales that amuse and perplex us. On the other, it's a deeply philosophical work that dares to question the nature of reality, identity, and perception. It forces us to confront how much we take for granted, and how easily our sense of truth might dissolve when viewed from another angle. The Zhuangzi is a collection of stories, parables, and philosophical musings that invite us to challenge conventional thinking and embrace the ever-changing flow of life. Written during China's Warring States period, it reflects a time of chaos and uncertainty, making its message of effortless living and radical acceptance all the more poignant. Zhuang Zhou, its presumed author, weaves humor, imagination, and paradox to teach profound truth. His writings, alongside those of Laozi, form the foundation of Taoism. But before we dive into its teachings, let's consider this question. What if the way we see the world is just one perspective among infinite possibilities? How would that change the way we live? During the Warring States period, China was rife with conflict, and intellectuals raced to offer systematic answers to the era's turmoil. Confucians advocated social harmony through ritual and moral rectitude. Mohists emphasized universal love and practicality. Legalists championed strict laws and harsh punishments to control society. Zhuangzi, however, seems to hover above the fray, reminding us that our carefully constructed systems might be nothing more than illusions, a single lens among many. The text mocks the gravity with which these rival schools cling to certainty and invites a radically different approach, to let go and see what happens when we embrace the unknown. Let's begin with one of the most famous passages from the Zhuangzi. Once, Zhuang Zhou dreamed he was a butterfly fluttering about, carefree and happy, doing as he pleased. He didn't know he was Zhuang Zhou. Suddenly, he woke, and there he was, solid and unmistakably himself again. But he didn't know if he was Zhuang Zhou who had dreamed of being a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming he was Zhuang Zhou. This parable invites us to question the boundaries between reality and illusion. Are we truly awake in this life, or are we simply dreaming? The butterfly dream challenges us to see beyond fixed identities and recognize the fluid nature of existence. Perhaps the truest freedom lies in embracing this ambiguity. With this simple yet profound anecdote, Zhuangzi topples the fortress of our everyday certainties. If Zhuang Zhou himself could not discern whether he was a man dreaming he was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming he was a man, how much trust can we place in what we label reality? This dream dissolves the boundaries between observer and observed, imagination and fact. It nudges us to consider that our perspective might be as ephemeral as the flutter of wings, a perspective that can shift in an instant. Think about your day. How often do you get caught up in the roles you play as a parent, a partner, an employee? What would happen if you approached these roles like a butterfly, light and free, instead of carrying the weight of expectations? Maybe, just maybe, we'd feel a bit more alive. Zhuangzi isn't asking us to shirk our responsibilities, but rather to hold them more gently. Our labels, brother, sister, student, leader, can become so heavy that we mistake them for our essence. The butterfly dream helps us question this rigid identification. After all, if our most basic self might be illusory or part of a larger cosmic dream, then perhaps we can approach life's demands with a more fluid, open-hearted spirit. Another key teaching in the Zhuangzi is the concept of wu wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. But don't be fooled by the term. It doesn't mean doing nothing. Instead, it's about aligning with the natural rhythms of life, rather than forcing outcomes. Zhuangzi tells the story of a butcher whose skillful carving of an ox becomes an art form because he follows the contours of the ox's body, effortlessly moving with its natural structure. This idea of flowing with the world, rather than fighting against it, resonates deeply in today's hustle-driven culture. How might we adopt wu wei in our lives? Perhaps by pausing, listening, and finding the path of least resistance in our daily challenges. The butcher's blade gliding through an ox suggests a profound lesson. When we learn to see the hidden lines of the world, whether those lines exist in a relationship, a work project, or even our own body and mind, our efforts become graceful. Instead of bulldozing through obstacles, we discover an elegant path. This principle undergirds much of Taoist thought, echoing Laozi's message in the Tao Te Ching, that water, by yielding, can wear down the hardest stone. In the Zhuangzi, this yielding is not passivity but a vibrant sensitivity to the currents of life. Let's consider the parable of the useless tree. A carpenter and his apprentice pass by a large gnarled tree. The apprentice remarks that the tree is useless, its wood is too twisted for building. But the carpenter points out that its very uselessness is what allows it to thrive. No one cuts it down. It provides shade and endures. Zhuangzi's lesson here is profound. What we perceive as useless might actually hold immense value. In a world obsessed with productivity and purpose, how often do we overlook the beauty of simply being? We can apply the useless tree parable in countless ways. Think about moments in your life that appear to lack tangible value. Perhaps you spent an entire afternoon watching clouds pass or quietly sitting on a park bench. From a productivity standpoint, you might label that time wasted. Yet it is precisely in those useless moments that we might replenish our spirit and catch a glimpse of life's inherent simplicity. Zhuangzi reminds us that doing nothing has its own hidden wisdom, just like the gnarled tree that endures because no one tries to exploit it. Ask yourself, where in your life do you feel useless or undervalued? Could it be that this space is where you find freedom, away from societal pressures and expectations? Maybe the gnarled tree within you is a source of strength. In a culture that measures people by their output, grades, salaries, likes, and followers, Zhuangzi offers a radical alternative. The concept that uselessness might save us from the constant grind. Through the story of the twisted tree, he gently urges us to protect those parts of ourselves that are unfit for commodification. Like the ancient carpenter, we can learn to value the subtle shade these useless aspects provide, discovering new forms of peace that society's superficial yardsticks cannot measure. One of Zhuangzi's most radical teachings is his perspective on death. When his wife passed away, he reportedly banged a drum and sang, celebrating the natural transformation of life. To Zhuangzi, death is not an end but a change, much like the seasons. In one passage, Zhuangzi dreams of his own transformation, becoming a snake, a bird, and eventually a man again. The message is clear: life and death are but two notes in the great symphony of existence. By likening death to a simple shift in season, or a dream that we wake from, Zhuangzi reframes our deepest fears. It's not that he dismisses grief, rather he sees the universe as a grand, dynamic cycle in which all things constantly transform. If our identities are as malleable as the butterfly's dream, then what is death but another phase in the cosmic dance? This perspective can bring solace in times of loss, offering a gentler context in which to hold our sorrow. Consider, how would your perspective on loss and change shift if you saw them as natural transformations rather than permanent endings? How might this bring peace to the cycles of gain and loss in your life? Recognizing life's cyclical nature can help us navigate personal challenges, be they the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, or even the demise of a cherished dream. Zhuangzi reminds us that letting go doesn't mean discarding our memories or emotions. It means making space for the new forms that inevitably arise. Just as trees shed leaves and later bud again, our moments of darkness can become the ground from which new possibilities sprout. Beyond these famous tales, the Zhuangzi also explores the art of free and easy wandering, an ideal state where we move through the world without burdensome judgments or rigid identities. Consider the opening chapter with free and easy wandering, which describes the giant fish kun transforming into the colossal bird peng, soaring high above the earth. This image, outlandish and mythical, underscores the text's boundless imagination. Zhuangzi suggests that by releasing our fixation on practicality and control, we might discover an inner expansiveness like Peng's massive wingspan. Another key passage appears in Discussion on Making All Things Equal. Here, Zhuangzi questions our reliance on logical distinctions and dualities, right and wrong, good and bad, large and small. He suggests that these categories are human constructs rather than absolute truths. By accepting that all things can be seen as equal from a higher vantage point, we loosen our grip on the judgments that confine our sense of reality. Paradoxically, this doesn't lead to moral relativism so much as to compassion, humility, and an openness to the mysterious oneness underlying existence. We also encounter sitting in forgetfulness, where a disciple describes entering a state of deep stillness, letting go of sight, hearing, and even consciousness itself. It's a practice akin to meditation, yet presented in the Zhuangzi's distinctive style, infused with humor and paradox. This forgetting isn't about losing oneself in a void. It's about transcending our usual mental chatter so that we can genuinely encounter the Tao, the ineffable way that moves through all things. The Zhuangzi is not a text to be solved, but a companion to walk alongside. Its playful, paradoxical stories remind us to question our certainties, embrace life's unpredictability, and flow with the great current of existence. Whether you see yourself as Zhuang Zhou or the butterfly, the invitation is the same: to live lightly, freely, and fully. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the Zhuangzi. If these teachings have sparked something within you, consider sharing them with someone who might benefit from their wisdom. Until next time, may you find joy in the dance of life, however it unfolds. In an age of information overload and constant demands, the Zhuangzi stands as a beacon of radical simplicity and humor. It does not offer a set of commandments, nor does it claim to have the final answer. Instead, it plays with contradictions and invites us to hold them gently. Its anecdotes, like the gnarled tree, the dreaming butterfly, and the joyful funeral drum, remind us that life is far too magical to be trapped in neat definitions. If we approach its passages with a playful, curious heart, we may discover that the text is actually reflecting our own hidden potentials back to us, urging us to question what we normally take for granted. Ultimately, the Zhuangzi shows that by releasing our hold on certainty, we can discover a new kind of freedom. It encourages us to roam the realms of possibility, like the great bird Peng soaring above the clouds. It asks us to laugh at our own seriousness, to see usefulness in what is commonly deemed useless, and to remember that even our most dreaded transformations, like death, could be but another stage in an ever-unfolding cosmic play. May these teachings serve as a gentle reminder that our identities, our sorrows, and our daily dramas are perhaps less solid than we imagine, and that there is immense liberation in that realization. So, as you step away from this episode, consider letting your mind wander lightly. like a butterfly drifting on a spring breeze. See what arises when you soften your grip, let questions linger, and greet life's contradictions with a knowing smile. In doing so, you honor the spirit of Zhuangzi, and maybe, just maybe, you open yourself to a wider, more wondrous way of being.